Coming up, U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg travels near the Arctic Circle to meet with Alaska Native leaders. A new cookbook features 8 plants, all unique and indigenous to America. And a music artist is taking the stage in more ways than one. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amirawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. It has been just over a year since President Joe Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law. That provided more than $720 million in tribal-specific funding. At the time, leaders of Native nations celebrated the move, and since then, the Biden administration has poured unprecedented amounts of funding into federally recognized tribes. Some parts of the Inflation Reduction Act have already come to a close. That includes the deadlines for home energy upgrades and climate crisis funding for Native Hawaiians. By the end of the year, nearly all the funding opportunities provided by the act will end. U.S. Representative Josh Brackeen, who is Choctaw, told Politico he opposes the act because it pushes the burden of green energy to taxpayers. On the other side, Representative Sharice Davids, who is Ho-Chunk, praised the IRA, saying this legislation funded many of Biden's green energy promises. In Oregon, a former WNBA star has received her sentence in a domestic violence case. On Friday, Shoni Schimmel pleaded guilty to 1 count of misdemeanor assault. The Umatilla citizen will not serve time in prison, but will pay more than $2,000 in restitution, complete 40 hours of community service, and attend a domestic violence treatment program. Although Schimmel initially pleaded not guilty, she admitted to headbutting her ex-girlfriend in the face and pulling her hair in June of 2021. In exchange for her guilty plea, U.S. Attorney Pamela Peso dropped a strangulation charge against Schimmel, along with the charge of assault resulting in substantial bodily injury, which are both felonies. Schimmel read a brief statement to the court before receiving her sentence, saying, quote, "I am only human, and I know I'm not perfect. To Indian country, this is not who I am, and it won't be who I am." In total, Schimmel will serve 2 years of probation. A trailblazing Indigenous leader known for community service has died at age 88. Ada Deer has been described as a force of nature. She is widely known for her instrumental role in helping to restore federal recognition for her nation, the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, in 1973. Deer served as the first chairwoman of her tribal nation and later became the first Native American woman to run for Congress in Wisconsin. Her longtime friend and executive director of the Carlisle Indian School Project, Gwen Carr, spoke to ICT.
I mean, what's not to love? I mean, she was an amazing woman. She was kind. She was smart. There was an innocence about Ada, a goodness about Ada that nothing could touch. And she expected the best out of people.
From 1993 to 1997, while serving as Assistant Secretary of the Interior for Indian Affairs, Deer helped over 200 Alaska Native villages get federal recognition, as well as tribal nations in Michigan and California. It was her long list of accomplishments and perpetual community service that earned her a place in the Native American Hall of Fame in 2019. Earlier this month, in celebration of her 88th birthday and groundbreaking work, Governor Tony Evers proclaimed August 7th as Ada Deer Day in Wisconsin. ICT was not immediately able to confirm her cause of death. The city of Seattle is taking steps toward better relations with its Indigenous citizens and neighbors. Just last week, the city released a list of commitments that grew out of a historic summit in May. ICT's Stuart Huntington has more with a tribal leader who sees good things ahead.
Seattle apparently is trying. 18 months ago, it seated its first Indigenous Advisory Council. This spring, tribal leaders from 11 nations gathered with a raft of civic officials to work at crafting a healthier future. Last week, Seattle issued a report from that summit with commitments to better include Indigenous voices in city affairs. Muckleshoot Vice Chairman Donnie Stevenson says it's a good start.
We sat across the table from one another, eye to eye, face to face, in a way that hasn't happened since the treaties were negotiated in 1855. That's tangible. That's meaningful. It is just the beginning, but it's a solid beginning, and it's a real opportunity to do some real good for Indian country and for Indigenous people in the region.
The summit report is long on aspiration and short on specifics, but Mayor Bruce Harrell's words are direct. We want to amplify the voices, experiences, priorities, and histories of the Indigenous peoples of this land, he wrote. And that, says Stevenson, is something to build on.
I'm the first to admit I'm a glass half full optimist, but I'm going to continue to be so until it's proven otherwise, especially when I have the ability to have a hand at making sure that glass stays half filled.
In Lac du Flambeau, Wisconsin, Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
So what is the next step? The Indigenous Advisory Council will meet this fall with Seattle Parks Department officials to talk about land use and land stewardship. Now to Minnesota, where the state will now require educators to enhance their understanding of Native American history in order to renew their teaching license. The new state law went into effect for less experienced staff this month and begins for veteran educators on January 1st. The Minnesota Professional Educator Licensing and Standards Board is currently working on the new curriculum and the program rollout. Until then, teachers can fulfill the new requirement under the existing cultural competency training. It includes instruction on how to best serve Native American students and Native American specific training, and will eventually be its own requirement. Governor Tim Walz supports the new initiative, saying, quote, "Given the rich history of American Indians and their contemporary contributions, more time and resources should be provided to Minnesota educators. The new training covers all Indigenous peoples, their contemporary contributions, and a section focused specifically on the state's tribal relations." And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. An estimated $108 billion has been made available under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law for things like roads, bridges, airports, and more. ICT's national correspondent Joaqlin Estus sat down with Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg during his first trip to Alaska. He was joined alongside the Transportation Department's Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs, Arlando Teller. Joaqlin started with asking the secretary about his trip to Kotzebue.
It was great. It was really informative, memorable movement. And I think a great way to begin our journey in Alaska, because it demonstrated the things that make life unique here. The physical proportions of Alaska, the fact that it took 2 hours of flying just to get there from Anchorage, the unique conditions and elements that affect everyday life, the ways of life that people have been practicing here for centuries or for millennia. And the fact that a one-size-fits-all federal policy doesn't compute in a place like Alaska.
I asked Secretary Buttigieg if he had a short message for Indigenous communities.
Well, it's really that we are here to support your needs, and we recognize as part of the government-to-government relationship the responsibility and the opportunity that we have, especially in this moment with historic infrastructure funding, meeting Indian country at many places where there is historic infrastructure need. We are here not just to offer help, but to listen and try to best understand how to be good partners.
Buttigieg has been working with Republican and Democratic parties. I asked him about working with Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan.
Well, one great thing about a lot of infrastructure issues and a lot of tribal issues is they're not necessarily predictable on partisan lines. Senator Sullivan and I won't agree on everything, but we certainly both care about this state and about making sure that we have solutions that work. And I would note that, he was one of a number of Republicans who crossed over party lines to work with Democrats and work with President Biden to get this infrastructure bill done. As a matter of fact, he remarked to me, he thinks that Alaska may have been the only all-Republican delegation with him, Senator Murkowski, and at the time Don Young, who all voted for the infrastructure law. We should double-check that, but I'm pretty sure that must be true. And he and I were saying, that must be right. I think largely because you don't have to be a Democrat or a Republican to see what infrastructure funding means for a place like Alaska and for the more than 200 tribes that have a presence here.
Mary Peltola is Alaska's newest member of Congress.
Yeah, and I've been in touch with Mary Peltola. She wasn't able to join today, but she's somebody who has such deep expertise and passion for the things that make ways of life possible here. In particular, I admire her deep expertise on fish. This week that we're announcing the culvert program, and something that's one of many truly new initiatives that's contained in the infrastructure package. And I think her expertise is going to be a real asset in Congress. In terms of what we're working with Congress on right now, one of the biggest things is the FAA reauthorization bill. And another thing that's been very valuable, whether I was meeting with the large cargo carriers at Ted Stevens Airport yesterday morning, or whether it was talking with the regional carriers up in Kotzebue later on in the afternoon, is just how distinctive the role of aviation is for communities in Alaska, so many of which aren't even connected at all by road. So that FAA reauthorization is in front of Congress right now. We're hopeful of getting it passed in a matter of weeks. And if we can get that done, that will chart the course to the next 5 years of U.S. aviation policy. So that's one example of an area where we are hoping for more continued work across both chambers and both parties, where the Alaska delegation, I think, could play a very important role.
The Secretary says there's lots to learn about Alaska.
Being here, you can't miss the physical size, the strategic importance, and the sheer uniqueness of Alaska. And so I'm really glad to have this experience. And I don't travel alone. I've been here with a lot of senior colleagues, and it's really important also to have our Assistant Secretary Arlando Teller and our tribal team here who can follow up on some of these distinctive and unique needs. Even just making sure we do a good job of charting the difference between land-based tribes and tribes in the lower 48 and how they're structured, and the role of Native corporations and the structure for Alaskan tribes and their regional groupings here in Alaska. Very important to make sure that we take all of that back to us so that we can have the right kinds of approaches that are, on one hand, include everybody as part of the same big picture story, but also don't treat everybody the same when every one of the 574 tribes has unique needs, and you certainly see that on display here in Alaska. So it's been a great visit, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to see tomorrow in the Southeast as well.
Reporting from Anchorage, Alaska, Joaqlin Estus, ICT News.
Eating a healthy diet is a goal for many of us, but through the generations and the influence of boarding schools, some of the traditional ways of eating are gone. Diné chef Walter Whitewater and culinary anthropologist Lois Ellen Frank are the authors of a new cookbook called Seed to Plate, Soil to Sky. Here is ICT's Shirley Sneve with the duo.
Community members want to eat more plants, and they want to be healthy, and they want to have health and wellness in their communities. But, a lot of us grew up with a mom maybe that boiled string beans till they weren't green anymore, or vegetables were out of a can. And so as much as people want to be healthy, and now we have farmers market available and things are being distributed that are fresh, people don't know how to cook plants. And as we know, many doctors are saying plant forward, eat a healthy diet, Mediterranean diet, and all of these diets have lots of plants. And so we worked with community health representatives and diabetes educators and doctors. And we said that we want to teach people how to cook plants, but we don't only want to teach them how to cook plants. We want to cook plants that are culturally appropriate for our Native communities. And we came up with 8 ingredients: corn, beans, squash, also called the Three Sisters. So corn, beans, squash, chili, tomato, potato, vanilla, and cacao. And these were 8 foods that didn't exist anywhere outside of the Americas. They're inherently and truly indigenous to the Americas. And we decided we were going to do a book featuring these 8 foods. Each food is its own chapter. We didn't do it European, soup, salad, appetizer, dessert, that kind of thing. Within each chapter are savory and sweet, entrees, sides. And we decided that we wanted to teach people how to make culturally appropriated foods featuring plants for health and wellness.
Our people always think that they see only like a hole like that, just see one way. But always tell people, look above on the other side. There's more other ways to do food. And I believe that's something that I wanted to experience, something that I always like, even though it's a recipe, but sometimes I love to change my way of cooking. It's just something that, if it's too sweet or whatever it is, and it didn't make sense to me when I was working with different chefs. Why do you need to add that? But it's corn. But why do you need to add heavy cream to that? Why do you need to, whatever it is? It's like, and then the same thing with you're making a dressing for a salad. It's like, what do you need oil for? That didn't make sense to me. It's something that I wanted to make it more naturally. And I think that's the most way of describing my background. Cooking mostly came from living on the reservation, and when I started living in another way and combining that two together, that's how everything started. Just something that it was through concern. The elders were concerned. What's going to happen way in the future?
All the recipes in Seed to Plate, Soil to Sky are vegetarian, but it's just part of the traditional indigenous diet.
If you look at the diet of the ancestors in the majority of Native communities, it was lots of plants, right? Roots and vegetables and herbs and beans and dried corn, and then wild game. And so if a group went out and hunted and brought back a deer, let's say, and then you have your community, they didn't just keep the deer for themselves, they shared. So we ate small amounts of very good quality meat, mostly wild game, and then lots of plants. And so all we're trying to do is reinvigorate and revitalize and reintroduce these plants with the wild game and the meats that were already in Native communities. We look historically at what happened, right? So we had a pre-contact or pre-colonial diet. Then there's contact, depending on where you are in the United States. That could be the English, the French, the Spanish. New York was New Amsterdam. That was the Dutch, right? Further south, it's Portuguese. And so all of these European nations brought the domesticated animals. And also they brought the byproducts of the domesticated animals. Most Native Americans are lactose intolerant. Milk, did you milk a wild buffalo? Probably not.
I think what really got me going was why is always language or songs or cultures more important? How come they always talk about that? But how come in other words, how come they don't talk about the sacred food? We got to give it time. Today everything's expensive with meat-wise. So, how about the plant? What got me going was the cactus pad. What are people survive on? And just something that, how come it's always game food? And how about the grains? That's where how everything that made me realize working with my dad, smelling these herbs, where'd you get this? Where'd you found this? And then he says, then this is what we use in our ceremony and things like that, you know? And that made me like, oh, food is our medicine. Here is it.
So where we are now, and I think what Walter and I are really trying to do, is what we call the new native. And there are other native chefs all over in their own communities making regional diets or diets of the Americas or restaurants. I mean, it's amazing. We're in a great, great time. And we call this the new native. And the new native is going back to the past and encouraging each community, each pueblo, each tribe to pick the foods that are important to them for their plates, for their health and wellness. And those foods are going to go back to that pre-contact period. And if we can help in a small, tiny way and show some recipes on how to make plants, to incorporate these plants into your diet. Plants add nutrients, they add medicine, they add vitamins, they add fiber. Then that's the purpose of this book. That's the purpose of showing people how to incorporate these plants into their diet.
Chefs Lois, Ellen Frank, and Walter Whitewater. The book is Seed to Plate, Soil to Sky. In Lincoln, Nebraska, Shirley, Sneve, ICT News.
It is a busy time for our next guest, who is a music artist. Rae Zaragoza has released her debut album, Hold That Spirit, and is currently on tour performing throughout the country. Aside from that, she will also be performing in an upcoming Peter Pan musical, playing the role of Tiger Lily. Rae Zaragoza joins us now virtually with more. Hi there, Rae. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
The last time we had you on was to talk about Netflix's Spirit Rangers. Tell us about your journey since then.
Yeah, it's really been a beautiful, creative couple years. Working on Spirit Rangers was so fun. And then I worked on my album, Hold That Spirit, over the course of the past couple years. And during that time, I was going through a lot in my personal life. I went through a big breakup and all kinds of things that turned into some beautiful songs that I got to release on this new album. And then I was recently cast in a new musical. It's a new and reimagined version of Peter Pan with additional book written by Larissa Fasthorse. And so Tiger Lily has gotten a lot of renovations and improvements, and she's now really empowered, and it's a much better representation of the Indigenous characters in the show, and I'm really excited to get to portray her in this new and empowered place.
I want to learn more about your album. Tell us about the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, so the album is called Hold That Spirit, and it's all about really holding on to the spirit within when you're going through tough times. I got engaged, and then the relationship fell apart, and I started to feel like I was losing sight of myself, but I had to hold on to the spirit within in order to move forward and figure out who I am outside of this difficult situation. And so there's a lot of songs on the album that are about empowering yourself as, you know, entering your 30s as a woman. What does that mean? And really deciding who you are and not letting someone else decide who you are for you. It's all about just kind of rediscovering yourself and holding on to the spirit within through all the difficult times.
As you mentioned earlier, we will be able to see you very soon in the Peter Pan musical. I want to talk about Tiger Lily because many people have historically seen that character as one that perpetuates harmful stereotypes about Native Americans. How do you approach that role, given that that's something that you know is harmful to people?
Absolutely. I think what made me want to do this character was the fact that the amazing Larissa Fasthorse has taken the book of the musical and completely rewritten all of the Tiger Lily so that it's reflective of Indigenous people, actual Indigenous people. And, you know, Larissa Fasthorse has been such an amazing and respected Indigenous playwright for a very long time. And I actually got to be in one of her plays 16 years ago. And so I knew that I could trust her and wanted to do with this character. And so I was really excited to get to be the vessel for this new version. And what I can say, I mean, I'm excited for everyone to see it, but what I can say is that, you know, in the original, Tiger Lily was this silent daughter of a chief in a fictional tribe, and she no longer is any of that. Like, now she's a leader herself, and actually is a leader of a tribe of different people from different, Neverland is now composed of people from different indigenous tribes from all over the world, and they all come to Neverland to preserve their cultures. And so I think that's something that's really beautiful. And I'm really excited about this new version of Tiger Lily, where she gets to speak up for herself. It's no longer perpetuating a stereotype of a silent, powerless girl. She's now incredibly empowered and gets to speak up and have a much larger part of the story.
We know that right now you're on tour. Where can our viewers find you and potentially see you play?
I will be on tour all over the country, from Los Angeles to New York, about 10 or 12 dates all over the country. You can check out my website, rayzaragoza.com, to see all of my tour dates.
Fantastic. Well, Ray, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.